Must end.
Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome to a Tuesday PressProsMagazine.com Huddle show. We're excited to be with you to talk about Week 9 of the high school football season. A very consequential week in the MAC and also in the Ohio Capital Conference. And we are looking forward to being joined in about 10 minutes after the hour by former OHSAA Executive Director Jerry Snodgrass. I'm Bruce Hooley. Beside me on the screen is Sonny Folks. We are with PressProsMagazine.com, your home for all the best narrative writing and feature photography. Mr. Folks, how are you this fine Tuesday night?
You know, I was just sitting here thinking, you said Week 9. I don't know if it's the years, if it's the age, but boy, the football season goes by really fast. I don't know. Maybe a lot of it has to do with the anticipation of week to week and all the attention that you give and the preparation you put in, you know, to covering it on Friday night. We'll have to ask Jerry Snodgrass about that in a moment. But, you know, it's amazing. You know, one more week in the regular season, you're into the playoffs already. So everything else is good. Tonight is opening night of the National Hockey League. That's a good thing for me. And so I've got that on in the other room when we get done. I'm looking forward to a little Tampa Bay and the Pittsburgh Penguins. So
there's playoff baseball on TV and you're watching hockey? I would not have expected that.
Well, there is playoff baseball, but watch that this afternoon. The Braves and the Brewers are on tonight. I've got that going too. But, you know, I like, I'll tell you, I'm a big Barry Melrose fan. We just talked about that. Yep. Before, that's on my bucket list. Now, all the years you were with ESPN, and you say that you've met Barry Melrose, that's a hookup that I'd like to meet. I'd like to talk to Barry Melrose.
Well, you'd enjoy it. He's a good man. So
I think he is. He looks like a good guy. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get to our football games because we've got some headline games this weekend: league championships, division championships, and the OCC. The MAC standings will certainly shake out a lot more clearly than they are right now. Marion Local leads them at 6-0 in the league, 8-0 overall, and then we got three teams tied for second place. Versailles, Coldwater, and St. Henry, they're all 5-1 in the league. St. Henry is at Versailles, and Coldwater is at Marion Local, and we, of course, will be staffing both those games.
Well, the Coldwater Marion Local game is significant because it's always one of the premier high school Friday night football games in Ohio. It's usually late in the season. And the other thing that's unique about it is the 50-50 is probably going to be north of $15,000. And I've never even had a smell of that. So that's a lot of fun, and to see who gets that. And the impressive thing, I've seen people who've won that before and made a nice donation back to the school. So that's always cool too. So that game will be compelling. I think the Versailles at St. Henry game, I think a lot of people believe that Versailles will go in and have their way with that because of the anticipation, the talent. They're very well coached. There's a lot of things to like about Versailles. I just have an unction that St. Henry with Owen Layfeld, that big offensive line that they have, and their ability to control the clock, shorten the game, and just pound you. You know, I that wears on any team. I don't care how good you are. And I just think at home, and as well as they have played the last 3 or 4 weeks, I just have an unction that game isn't one that you're automatically going to say Versailles will win. The other game that I'm really excited to hear about, I saw Northridge play last week for the first time in person. And they have a young man named Cavante Turpin who really opened my eyes. He's like 5'8" and 155 pounds, can turn on a dime, and he made life miserable last Thursday night for the Troy Christian Eagles. Great young man. I had an opportunity to talk with him after the game. Very positive personality. Looking forward to his future. Looking forward to this football game Friday night against Milton Union. Now Milton Union is 7-1. That they're undefeated in the league. Northridge has one league loss. So like Brett Pierce told me the other night, the only thing we're guaranteed of is third place in the league. We have to win this game, and then we have to finish out. So those are three very compelling football games. And I would say for Bob Smith and the Northridge Polar Bears' sake, probably the most important game that they've had in a decade.
All right. Well, we will be staffing that one as well. We are a service of our friends at visitcanton.com. Of course, state football championship weekend is December 2nd, 3rd, and 4th at Tom Benson Hall of Fame Stadium in Canton, right beside the Pro Football Hall of Fame. That's just one of the many great attractions in Canton. There's great dining. There's great lodging. There are day trips to take if your team is not playing in the state championship game at, on Saturday, but they're playing on Friday or they're playing on Sunday. You want to know what to do in Canton? The place to find out is visitcanton.com. They got a lot of great events going on even now. Why not take a scouting trip up there to Stark County? They love their high school football in Stark County. Sonny and I are big supporters of its title games being in Stark County, and we're proud to partner with visitcanton.com. They're the presenting sponsor of the PressProsMagazine.com Huddle Show. So we thank our friends at visitcanton.com, and we encourage you to click on any of their ads in Press Pros content. It'll take you right to their site. You can find out what's going on in Stark County that weekend and other weekends at visitcanton.com. Over here in the OCC this week, Sonny, we'll have 3 games that will pretty much craft your division championships in the OCC. One of those games is Olentangy Berlin, which is number 1 in its region in Division 2, taking on Marysville, which is number 1 in its region in Division 1. That's, of course, Gabe Powers. Berlin had a come-from-behind win last week. Harrison Brewster engineered that comeback victory. Steve Blackledge covered it. You can read it under the Central Ohio tab at PressProsMagazine.com. And then we have New Albany at Pick North. New Albany is undefeated. Pick North has lost once, but its loss was not to Pick Central. They beat Pick Central without scoring an offensive touchdown. That one will shape the OCC Ohio. And then Big Walnut, which is number 1 in its region as well. Big Walnut is 5-0 in the OCC Capital. They're taking on Dublin Scioto, which is 4-1. So 3 really good games here in Central Ohio in the OCC.
You know, one of the things that strikes me about the OCC is to have that many teams. There's 32 teams, as I understand, in the league, and to have that many good teams.
Yeah, there are some really good teams. We didn't mention Upper Arlington. Upper Arlington's running away.
Upper Arlington, Hilliard. It's odd to me over here. Usually, and for that matter, you look at the MAC this year. There's 5 quality teams in the MAC. That has been down around 2 or 3 here for several years. But this year, you add Versailles back in the mix, along with Coldwater, Marion. St. Henry is strong again. New Bremen is the new kid on the block who has really opened some eyes this year with their competitive talent. But the OCC, to have that many teams, and you just named what? 8?
I named 7. Including Upper Arlington, which plays ex-Minster coach Garen Stokes this week. I got a chance to talk to Garen on Friday night after his team, Dublin Kaufman, fell at Hilliard-Davidson. And Davidson's a really good team. They have 2,000-yard backs. They've got 2 losses on the season. So there'll be some very interesting first couple weeks of the high school football playoffs in Central Ohio as they try to whittle those regions down. Westerville South has found a quarterback. Westerville South is a team to watch in Division 2. So a lot of good football coming in Central Ohio. And,
you got that many good teams in one league. Now I can justify 16 teams in a region when you got that kind of talent. But we'll talk about that later with Jerry. So.
Yeah, we will. Now, one quick word on Ohio State. The Buckeyes are off this week. They smoked Maryland. They smoked Rutgers the week before. That's your Jim Delaney cupcake portion of the schedule. I'm sure Ohio State is grateful that Maryland and Rutgers are, the pushovers that they are in the Big Ten East. They get them every year, seemingly back-to-back, so they're good for what ails you. If what ails you is a bad defense and an offense that's not hitting on all cylinders, we'll see how Ohio State plays 2 weeks from now at Indiana. That's a night game now. You wanted to go over to Bloomington and shoot that game, so happy trails on a night game in Bloomington. And after that, of course, it's Penn State. We don't know if Sean Clifford, the Penn State quarterback, will be healthy for that game October the 30th in Columbus. He left the game late in the first half of Penn State's loss at Iowa. Their backup quarterback was dreadful, and Penn State managed only 3 points after that. So really, Ohio State, ideally, you would have had Penn State win that game if you're Ohio State, but it didn't happen that way, and they'll have to go through Penn State to win the Big Ten East, and most likely have to go through Iowa in the Big Ten title game. So we can talk more about that.
I know competition matters. Better teams matter.
Yep.
But honestly, I sat on the sideline Saturday and I watched Ohio State play, and they are so talented in so many areas. When you go out and execute the way they did, and you go out and have C.J. Stroud throw the ball. He made 2 throws that were NFL throws. Those 2 touchdowns to Olave were just – he just zipped the ball right on his hands. I mean, a perfect pass. And when you've got that kind of talent executing at a high level, I think you can play against anybody on a given day. Now, somebody's always talking about what the given day is. I'd like to have a given day in once time in my life, but they were impressive to me because they've got talent. They just need to play. And I think they've got a fortunate schedule coming up that they get another couple of weeks before they get Penn State.
Yeah, I don't see anybody in the Big Ten that can score with them. Their defense is going to give up points against a good offense. There really just isn't another good offense in the Big Ten. Michigan State maybe, but I don't think Sparty can score enough points to beat them, particularly in Ohio Stadium. Michigan's offense, I'm not that sold on them. They've struggled to get rid of Rutgers. They've struggled to get rid of Nebraska. I can't believe that Michigan could score the 30 to 35 you're going to have to score to beat Ohio State. Alabama can. I'm not sure Georgia can, but I'm pretty sure Ohio State can't score 30 on Georgia. I'll tell you what. I'd take a national semifinal right now. Sign me up for it. Ohio State against Cincinnati.
Oh, that'd be fun. That'd be fun. But you talk about their defense. Yeah, look, somebody mentioned to me today about Ohio State's defense. I said, what about Alabama's defense? You score 38 against Texas A&M and you can't win?
Yeah.
You score 38 points, you got to be thinking W.
Yeah.
So
unless you're a Browns fan.
I don't think that's I don't think that's a condemnation of anybody in college football this year, that especially Ohio State, that their defense can't stop anybody. That's a work in progress, on the job training, OTJ, all that kind of stuff. I think they're going to be fine. You can't imagine until you see them up close how talented they are athletically. I mean, top to bottom. They got athletes everywhere. They'll be fine.
Dude, who are you talking to? I covered them for 18 years. I got guys who are in the Pro Football Hall of Fame I covered in college. What do you mean I can't imagine how talented they are?
No, I'm not talking to you. I'm talking about the rank and file people out there with a tank top and a laptop sending out all these tweets and emails talking about that Kerry Combs has to go and this guy's got to go, fire this guy, get a new recruiting coordinator. We got to have this. They got plenty of what they need.
Yeah.
You can always be better. You can always recruit to specific positions, but I'm telling you, they are very, very talented.
Well, they are, and so are you, and so's our next guest, and he is a favorite of people in the PressProsMagazine.com readership area. You know him, you love him. He is the former Ohio High School Athletic Association Executive Director, kind enough to join us, Jerry Snodgrass. Hi, Jerry. Great to see you.
Hey, great to see you guys. Thanks for having me on, and also love what you guys do. You have done so much for not just one area of Ohio, but you've blossomed into other areas, and it's so good for the high school athletes and the high school coaches that put so much time in.
Well, Jerry, you and I have talked about this, it seems like for thousands of hours, but honestly, when you have played, and we've all played, you have a better idea of what it means to go out and cover the games, to watch the games, to write about them, to photograph them. And of course, and I think you have a greater appreciation than the person who's never played or never competed or anything like that. And I think that's what drives the effort. And I think that's what keeps us going. And I think that's what makes it fun.
One of the things I've said, I don't know if the term is right or not, but, I revert back to from starting as a teacher. And I am so fortunate that I was a junior high football and basketball coach when I first started. And later in my career, actually, when I was an assistant at the OHSAA, I coached, I was a volunteer assistant for a junior high girls B team. Now, basketball, let me tell you, that you learn a lot. But those are probably the most gratifying things, in all seriousness, that I have done in the coaching world. But I often say, I don't know if it's a proper term, but I'm looking from the outside. I'm from the outside looking in. In my coaching career, when I was done with basketball, I would often tell my wife, I'd see something going on from a coach or something that was, that wasn't real good. And I'm not talking X and O's. I'm talking about maybe sideline behavior. And I'd look at my wife and say, tell me I didn't do that. And you can only imagine the look I got.
Jerry, Chris Holtman was on here with us 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I asked him, is there ever a time now when you just want to go back in high school and teach the pick and roll? And I want to ask you, you've been around administrative service for so long. Is there ever a time when you would just like to go back to Findlay and teach and coach?
You have no idea how much I considered that in a number of ways. I was asked to coach golf this year there. I still live there. I still live in Findlay, which I think has always been a good thing that I've, stayed out into I'll call it in the field. But I also know, from the athletic side of things, the director, the administrator part of athletics, which I dearly love. It was my career. Boy, I also know how much time and how it, I think for the longest time, I think athletic administration in Ohio, the average athletic director, lasted about 3-4 years. And I know why. But yeah, there are times I definitely would like to. I taught a class at Ohio University this summer on leadership and ethics in athletic administration. And it put me back to my roots of teaching again. And that's what coaching is. I mean, that's what coaching is. There are sometimes our best teachers.
Jerry, I'd be curious for you to kind of reflect a little bit on how high school athletics has changed since you got into it as a teacher out of college. I mean, I would just think in terms of the obvious answer to me is the number of sports offerings. I mean, now we have soccer and lacrosse and all these different sports. Some schools play 20 varsity sports. And with that, costs go up, and that's always a concern too. I mean, I know the cost to get into a high school athletic event now. It's not uncommon to pay $8, $10 to get into a high school athletic event, a regular season game. So I'm sure you've seen the costs go up, but I also know that those costs finance a lot more offerings than they used to.
Yeah, they do. This cell phone, it's changed a lot of the athletic, participation, the entertainment value of it, so on and so forth. I remember, and it wasn't that long ago, but it seems like it, but when I was coaching and really in the advent and the beginnings of AAU basketball, travel baseball, the people don't remember sometimes that hasn't been around that long. Right. But I remember a parent in Findlay, his son had played ball for us, and he started this travel basketball team. And I remember seeing some kid, out in his driveway. I mean, I drive by. I used to carry T-shirts, Findlay basketball T-shirts. I'd throw him one. I'd introduce myself to the kid, the 6th grade kid. And I went to this parent, another parent, and said, boy, this kid, man, is he going to be good? And the parent said to me, oh, don't worry. He's not going to play for you. And I kind of said, what? What are you talking about? Am I that bad? He goes, oh, no, it has nothing to do with that. He said, his family, there's no way they can afford to go to camps. There's no way they can afford to pay the fees, that were associated with that kind of thing. And boy, did it make me think. It made me think. But yet coaches are caught on the other side of that. If they don't do it, the general public thinks, they're not working hard enough. So, a lot has changed. There's no question.
Jerry, I want to pose this question to you, and Bruce and I were talking before we came on the air tonight about the last year and a half with the pandemic and the number of small schools. And I think it's the governor's dirty little secret in Ohio that have suffered with their athletic budgets to the point where they may never recover to offer some of the sports they used to play. The number of kids that have dropped out altogether, because if you don't play for a year, and if you're 16, 17 years old and you get out of the habit of working out and lifting and competing and things like that, you get a job and a girlfriend and a cell phone, your life's set. Are you concerned, as much as I talk about it, about the number of Division 5, 6, 7 schools, particularly in Southeast Ohio and Eastern Ohio out there in the hinterlands, that may never be a long time if they ever recover from this?
I'm very concerned about it. I think it's really forced athletic directors, with their programs to be more efficient, things that they maybe, were able to spend money on previously. They probably can't now. Programs, certain types of programs. And we all have to face a fact. Who'd you guys talk about at the top of the show? The good teams in the OCC. Yeah. The teams in the MAC, Shelby County schools, stuff like that. I get that. But we kind of overlook, I talked to a coach tonight that, coaches in Northeast Ohio, and his team's 0-8. And, he's struggling to just keep kids. And it's a Division 1 or 2 school. And I mean, so yeah, the winning breeds success. There's no question. But I'm concerned about that. I'm concerned about, face it, it's so much easier for fans to stay home. Although I will give credit that I think a lot of games are packed this year because people wanted to get back. But I think that'll taper off a little bit too. So I am very concerned about, those other programs, maybe how much schools will invest in them.
Jerry Snodgrass, former OHSAA executive director, is our guest here on the PressProsMagazine.com Huddle. Jerry, Sonny, and I have both said that we understand why they expanded the football playoffs to 16 teams in each region. Neither of us are fans of it. We fear that there's going to be some really lopsided first-round games. And I'd just be curious to get your viewpoint, having looked at it from the budgetary side at the OHSAA. You could bring a different perspective to it maybe than we can. But what did you think about that particular expansion? And, are you a fan of it, or would you favor maybe going to 12 instead of jumping it from 8 to 16?
I look at it in a very transparent way, and I'm not afraid to say this, and it's not, and I'm very front to say that I'm not critiquing that because I'm not the person making that decision.
Right.
But I was in that seat in April. I think if you look back at board minutes, I believe it was April. If I'm wrong, I stand corrected, but I believe it was April when the vote was taken by the board, and I was in that seat at the time, to go to 12. And something that I stated very clearly in a work session, which is, not out there as much, is I and most of our staff were opposed to it at that time, going to 12. Now, I'm also the first to believe, I truly believe this. It's like the shot clock. My own personal opinions of it might be different than the magnitude, the multitude of coaches and everything else. Well, the same thing with the going to 12. Our board wanted it, so we were going to adopt it. But the reason that I opposed it, and I mean, I don't have these numbers in front of me, but over the course of, I believe, 12 to 14 years, and I was at the OHSA working as an employee for 12, every single sport that either added a division, take, for example, girls soccer, that added a third division, I think in my second or third year there, football that went to 7 divisions, swimming, I believe, added a division. Every single one of those sports that did that actually resulted in less revenues. So I could be wrong on one slight one, but I know Debbie Moore was a good historian of the organization and there longer than I was, and she pointed that out, and we knew that. So I opposed it, for financial reasons, but that's not the only reason. I just thought we were in a good place with 8. Our board adopted 12, and I embraced it. There's no way. There's no reason I wouldn't have. Now, of course, COVID hit, and they changed that, after I was gone. But the other thing I would say about that is the loss of the resulting lower revenues was based upon the model that had been used at the organization for a long time. And that was giving certain monies back to the schools that participated, some for expenses and for both teams, travel expenses, things like that, and also paying the sites for use of their facilities. And listen, I ran more tournament games at the time, probably than most people in Ohio when I was the AD at Finley. And I know what it costs. I mean, my police officers back in 2008, the mayor told me how many I had to have and what they were going to get paid. I didn't have any choice in that. So I know what it costs. If you change that model and give less to the schools to host whatever tournament may be, and also, adjust what you're giving to the schools, well, certainly you can turn that into a revenue raise ticket prices. Well, certainly you can change that and make it profitable. I encountered different things a little bit though too, because, my boards, did not want ticket prices raised. You have to remember, we didn't have COVID. So given the way it was, our board, I went through several boards when I was an employee there that, they held the line on ticket cost. I mean, so But again, I'm not critiquing that. That's just a choice they have. And I don't. So you can turn it into a revenue process. But all that aside, my long-winded saying of I was okay with 12. I guess, I heard the comment that everybody wanted the 16. So who am I to contradict that? I mean, that's what I heard. So,
Jerry, I hear this almost every day that somebody says more is better. More is the fact the 16 is such a positive move for athletes. We need more positivity for kids. We need to give kids the opportunity to experience the playoffs. So to go to 16 is such a positive thing. I'm not so sure. Mm-hmm. I'm not so sure that it is a positive thing if you go out and beat 63-0. I don't know that you're going to get a printed T-shirt and wear that all next summer and say I made the playoffs and got to be 63-0. I don't know that. I think we've gotten so in the habit of thinking more for more people is positive that we've lost sight of, well, what could the consequences be?
Yeah, that's that balance between, I'll admit I'm very old school in that regard, tough love sometimes. And, I get that, at the same time, giving kids trophies, giving them rings for, I see now people give rings for winning league championships. I mean, holy cow. I mean, that's that balance. I mean, my personal opinion is, I'm not one of those that more is necessarily better, but again, that's just a personal opinion. And, people may totally disagree with me and blast me for that. And that's okay. I mean, I front it with saying it's my opinion.
Yeah.
How much of a struggle was it at the OHSAA and the challenges they faced going forward? I'm curious exactly what kind of feedback you got on the age-old public versus private battle. And I know you guys tried many different ways to bridge that gap and get everybody happy. I don't think there's a way to make everybody happy. So just maybe take us through that a little bit and how you think it's shaken out right now. I'm not even sure if they still have the system in place where if you keep winning, they move you up.
They don't have that, but they have the competitive balance, aspect that's still in place. And it's an interesting question because really the bottom line word on all of it is the R word. It's called recruiting. Yeah. And, I think in old school, older times, people lost sight of people haven't realized that public schools have open enrollment. They want their seats filled. They want $6,000 of state monies, for every single student that comes there. If they happen to be in athletics, well, hey, athletics are part of the educational system. Here's the big challenge, I do believe, and I felt this when I was in the executive director's role. I had enough meetings with state legislators, and my football coach at Findlay was a senator. There's several. The treasurer of the state of Ohio, though he's not a legislator, but treasurer of the state of Ohio lives down the street from me. So, I kind of knew, where so many things sat. But I remember a common belief was if that R word is the big deal, then if you were to separate public and private, and all of a sudden the private schools, non-public schools, go their own route, there's no control over recruiting at all then. And that's recruiting is a very hard thing to legislate anyhow and prove. The other side of that is I was always, it is not survey proof to say this, but so many of the legislators that I talked to said, yeah, go ahead and separate, have your school separate, and we will get involved instantly and not let it happen from the legislative side. Why? Look at how many of the legislators, I don't have a poll on that, but so many legislators' kids go to non-public schools. They want what the OHSAA and the public schools offer. So you've got that balance there. And that's where I think ethics and all those other things really come in more and more.
I think the most ethical thing about public and private is, as an athlete, you as an athlete, maybe in that day, or certainly as a coach, is just I grew up with that whole ideal of if I want to win something, I want to beat the best. I don't care if they're Catholic, I don't care if they're Baptist, Methodist, Presbyterian, or what. I want the satisfaction of beating the best possible competition. And that is still available when you have publics playing privates.
Right. And you talk to so many coaches and they will say that. They don't get caught up in it. They get caught up. And I wish our communities and school boards and so on would be more supportive of this. But given the talent pool that a school has, their goal as a coach is to do the absolute best with that group they have. And sometimes, if that's 2 wins, man, you're sure you wanted to win all 10, but again, not so supportive by schools that way either, though.
You brought it up a second ago. I'm going to ask you, is there any consistent evidence that competitive balance has worked?
No, I don't believe there is. That was a concern, I think, when it first came in. There was a common belief internally by many staff members that, when it was introduced or when the schools passed it, I think it was on its 3rd try, that schools would kind of scratch their head and look at it and say, okay, here we go. And will it work? I think we're in that phase right now, how many years later, but is it working? And I don't think there is any substantial proof that it is or isn't.
Jerry, yeah, I see on social media you're doing some games on the radio. I don't know how many weeks you've done, but I'd just be curious to know what teams you like that you've seen that you think people ought to keep an eye on in terms of being able to win a state.
You just think it's radio because I have a face for radio. It's actually TV. So I've seen a lot of Western Buckeye League teams. I saw Columbus Grove play 2 weeks ago, or 1 or 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, and they're good. I've seen Perrysburg play several times because they are, my grandson's in that school district. They're very up and, I wouldn't say up and down. I think they're overachieving. I've seen Findlay go from, a little struggling to pretty darn good right now. But saw Marion local and saw them in their first game against Wapakoneta.
Right. Oh, yeah, there.
And it was so interesting because Wapak did not play well that game. Marion didn't play that well. And so I'm curious where that goes. 2 weeks later or whatever, I have Wapakoneta, I think St. Mary's beat Van Wert. So I saw this, Ottawa Glandorf, I had them. They were 0-2. And then I saw them just spank St. Mary's. So I've seen a lot of very up and down. And that's, that's probably where 12 teams, maybe 16, maybe it'll pay off. But we'll see. I think 12, again, that range of 12, I haven't looked at all the regions, but I think that's where you'll see a lot of that balance come in.
I want to compliment you on something, and I've laughed about this with you before. Nobody ever handed out a trophy with more verve and more just knowledge about the community where those kids came from, those schools. And I always wondered how many greasy spoons you've eaten in over the years. How do you know all the bars, all the barber shops, all the newspapers, all those little towns? How many of those have you actually been in, or how many of them do you know somebody from?
Both. When I went to the OHSAA to work as an assistant in 2008, not that was the big thing, but, you had a real pride in that because you were standing in front of community. Maybe it's overused, but you hear the term all the time that it takes a village.
Yeah.
You talked about $14,000. And by the way, I'm going to give you a couple bucks to throw in for the 50-50 at the Coldwater Marion game. But
I got you covered.
I'll even take the JV pool the next day. But anyhow, when I say it takes a village, I mean, it really does. And I felt when I was standing in front of them, I felt, boy, oh boy, am I giving back to that village and what they meant to be part of that. The greatest thrill I probably ever had. There were several. But one of them was when Defiance won the state high school basketball tournament in kind of an unbelievable way. Kirk Lehman played for Defiance when I started my coaching career there. And I knew where he grew up playing ball in Bronson Park. And I was talk about a community there that was to support it. And they're not the only ones. So I took such pride in that. And I did know where those places were. I joke all the time about when I would go into those places. when I went to McSober's in Coldwater, places like that. When I went to Fishmo's, I had to go to Fishmo's.
Willie's.
Yeah, but I went there, and I was very inconspicuous. I didn't go in and say, hey, I didn't wear my OHSAA stuff. I would go in there and just, have a Pepsi or something, and converse. But then somebody would find out maybe who I was, and that's an honor. I mean, it wasn't ego for me. It was just I wanted to get a feel of the community. I wanted to get a feel of every single fiber of that community. I loved it. And by the way, you mentioned Visit Canton, and I don't mean to digress to that, but that is one of the things I miss, like you can't imagine, is that group from Visit Canton. David Baker at the Hall of Fame. What a genuine human being, and his staff. I miss that. Talk about fiber of a community. I miss that in that community. So I'm glad they're back there. We had made that agreement. We just hadn't signed anything right before I was let go.
Yeah, well, we think it's a great venue for the state football title game because the people in Stark County really embrace it. And
they do.
I know there's a thought that, Ohio Stadium is a destination venue for players, and I understand that, but I also understand that there's something to an ambiance that a title game ought to feel like a title game. And when you have a packed house and you have locals who'll come out and watch because they want to support it, I just think that's going to be a great weekend of high school football at Tom Benson Hall of Fame Stadium, a remodeled, refurbished stadium. And I just think, man, that's an awesome staycation to head up there to Canton for that weekend of high school football.
It sure is. And, I take that also with University of Dayton in basketball. Again, before I left, I knew that we would not be able to go back to Ohio State. And I mean, I don't fault Ohio State for that. They have to take care of their own programs, and there just were no weekends left. So I knew Scott, the general manager of the UD Arena, and we started conversation with him. And we had made the commitment to go there. We just hadn't signed. I don't think we had signed it yet. So, but I did see that they followed through, and I'm glad they did because we had set all that up to do that before I was let go. And I'm not saying it was our only choice. It wasn't. But same thing. It's a basketball area, and it will bring that auxiliary fan into it.
Yeah.
Okay, back to those 50-50 tickets. You want the arm's length? About that many of them?
I'll take the arm's length. I'll take it. And I better get photographs of what those numbers are because
I'll cover you.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
All right.
I'll call you if you win, right?
Sure you will.
Well, Jerry, it's been great having you on. High school athletics is better with you in it. And we have more than probably one thing, but we definitely have one thing in common, the three of us, is we understand the value of high school sports. We love high school sports, and we're about making it a more special experience for communities, for kids, for coaches, for fans. And so we appreciate your role in that. You've been a legend in Ohio for all that you've done for high school sports, and a lot of people have very fond feelings for you, as well they should.
And you guys do that too. And I will tell you that what you're doing right now is the one thing I miss so much, and that's giving back. Serving, I felt every day in that role, every day. And my high school coaches would tell you this. I felt every day like I was giving back to them and the teachers that put me in a position to want to do those things. So thank you very much. You guys do a great job.
Well, whatever you're taking that gives you this kind of energy at 9 o'clock at night, will you send me a packet of those?
I've had it forever. That was. I will tell you this. What a drop off when you're used to working with that energy at 12 hours a day, and all of a sudden one day you don't. Oh boy, I'll admit that's a struggle.
Send me a bottle.
Will do.
All right, Jerry. Thank you so much for your time, and I hope we see you soon down the road.
Will do. Thank you, guys.
There you
go.
You
bet, buddy. Thank you.
Yep.
Jerry Snodgrass, the former commissioner of the Ohio High School Athletics Association. Great guy and good people, and nice of him to join us here on the Huddle. All right, my friend, what else would you like to get into tonight? You want to weigh in on Jon Gruden's emails? You want to leave that alone?
Well, honestly, let me just. Here's the only thing that I have to say about that is I can't believe it was such a national topic all day. Every radio station, every TV show, everything, talk show, everything today was about Jon Gruden. It's nothing new. It's nothing new. And, you know, for some of the things that he is alleged to have said, and certainly we live in a different culture. We live in a different day. You get up in the morning with the first thing on your mind is to watch your P's and Q's and watch what you say and watch how you just how you characterize anything anymore, because, you know, everybody is so easily are looking to be offended about something, whether it's racial or not. But on the other hand, we've been on this earth for 2,000 years. We have many of the same issues 2,000 years later that we had from the outset. And, you know, it's amazing that people talk today about with such shock and surprise that this could happen to a guy who's a coach in the National Football League. Like the National Football League is the first door to the top of the steps in heaven. Yeah. It's not, you know, but by the grace of God, we all are in that situation. So it's one of those things that you get tired of hearing about, you get tired of happening, and you wonder if it'll ever cease. And I'm not sure it will.
Well, I think it's a topic of conversation because it gives a lot of people the opportunity to push somebody else down, and in that endeavor, raise themselves up as if they're
say, I told you so.
Yeah, some kind of great bastion of integrity. I mean, everybody has a dark part to them, and I would say that I highly doubt that anyone is genuinely hurt by something someone writes in an email that's 10 years old. And if you are hurt by that, then you're giving people who shouldn't have that kind of power over you that kind of power over you. I think there are going to be a lot more openings in the National Football League than just the Las Vegas Raiders if every coach who was against the drafting of Michael Sam and against the hiring of a female official is out of work, or who thinks Roger Goodell's a bonehead. So those are your standards. There are going to be a lot of openings in the NFL tomorrow. So I just find the whole thing, you know, very predictable, but also very ridiculous. So that's where we are with that. Anything Reader Speaks wise before we bid everyone adieu and thank them for watching the Huddle Show live and ask them to tell their friends about it so they can watch it on the replays?
Yes. Jeffrey from Columbus.
Jeffrey from Columbus
wrote this week and said, how many playoff games per night will Press Pros be staffing, to use your term? Jeffrey, we have never done Columbus before in the playoffs, but I'm going to say it won't be that much different than what we're doing presently in the regular season. We have been doing about 4 or 5 on Friday night. Of course, they play Friday and Saturday nights. So what I will tell you is, first of all, I appreciate your readership.
Very much.
I appreciate your acknowledgement and the fact that you say you enjoy what we're doing over there. And I know that's Bruce's bastion over there. That's where he resides and where he calls those shots pretty much. But look, we enjoy doing it. It's an exciting time of the year. And we will always try to pick the most compelling games, the best games, the ones that have the most fan interest. You know, we talked a moment ago about somebody getting beat 63-0 in round 1. That can happen. We'll try not to let that happen. We try not to get those games. We try to know enough about the teams we cover, Bruce, I think you'll agree, to go out and try to avoid those kinds of matchups to where, you know, if we're going to go out and do it and you're going to take the time and give your effort to read it, we wanted to make it count as best we can for you.
Yeah, we have some games where we get a more lopsided game than we anticipate. That happens. Sometimes we're in an area because that particular night it feels like a good time to get to that area. We always say we are not a newspaper. We are a magazine. So we try to do the games that have the most interest in terms of the balancing the interest of the community and the quality of the teams. I know that they'll alternate nights. Some divisions will play on Friday, some will play on Saturday. It's no secret we have a lot of teams that congregated in divisions 6 and 7, and a lot of teams congregated in divisions 1 and 2. So I certainly hope those divisions are staggered somewhat. Most of our 1 and 2s are in Columbus. Most of our 6s and 7s are in Western Ohio. So we hope 6 and 7 are on different nights, and we hope 1 and 2 are on different nights. But until we know how that's going to shake out, it's impossible for us to predict. But we've been very blessed to have people like you, Jeffrey, who've warmed to our coverage in Columbus. And we're also very blessed to have people like Steve Blackledge, Brian Bayless, John Hulkenberg, Aaron Blankenship, Keith Harney. We have a good roster of people that we can call on in Central Ohio. And we're always looking for others to add to our numbers, and always looking for sponsors too, because being the unrepentant capitalists we are, that makes the world go round.
All right.
Now we have one comment here on Facebook tonight, Mr. Folks, and you're going to like it. Keith says he has a feeling, Sonny, buy your 50-50 ticket this week.
I usually do it at the ballpark, Keith, if I'm going in, and I'm one of those kind of guys that scrounge the console of my car, for quarters and dollar bills. And I'm like Jerry Snodgrass. I go for the arm's length, and that's enough. I know people will go in there and spend $20, $30, $40, $50 like they're playing Powerball. My dad would have always said, my dad would not have bought a 50-50 ticket, by the way, for any reason, but he always would have said, just takes one to win.
Now, what's the protocol? You're supposed to give, are you supposed to give half your half back to the school, or are you allowed to keep your half? And if you would happen to win, let's say you're faced with the dilemma of walking out of Marion with $8,000 in your pocket. Like, do you walk out with that, or is that?
First of all, understand this. I think the winner's half is $14,000.
Whew.
And several years ago, I was there, and somebody from out of town actually won it. And I think, if I remember right, they gave a nice chunk of it back to the school, which was roundly applauded. But I don't know. I've never even been close. In fact, I can't even get the right color ticket when they pull them. So I'm not blessed that way. What would I do with it?
No, I'm just curious how it works. Do they send it to you electronically, or do you?
I think they for that kind of money anymore, because of security reasons, they probably send you a check.
Yeah, I don't think you want to walk out of the stadium with that.
Send it to you. No, I don't think you walk around with $14,000 cash in your pocket, because they announce the winner. And it kind of makes you a marked man if somebody's looking for you with that kind of cash in your pocket.
Brad is helping us out.
I think it would probably be a good idea to put it in our endowment fund.
Yeah, that'd be good. Brad says divisions 1, 2, 3, and 4 will be on Friday, and 5, 6, 7 will be on Saturday.
Brad, how would we live without you?
There we go, Brad. Thank you very much. So we will have plenty of football to cover. Piqua Piqua's D2, correct?
D2.
And Piqua leads its region in D2. So looks like Piqua will be on a different night than Versailles, Coldwater, Marion, New Bremen, St. Henry, all the teams over in Western Ohio. Great.
Yeah. So there's the answer to the question right there.
There we go. Thank you, Brad. Appreciate it,
Brad. Appreciate it. And Jeff, thanks again for writing in with the question. It's a good one, and we're looking forward to it.
Yep. And we want to remind you, like Jerry Snodgrass said, Press Pro's Huddle Show is presented by Visit Canton.com. We'll be at Bender's sometime that weekend, and we will be at other restaurants in Canton too. And we'll go to visitcanton.com to find out which ones we should patronize. I've got a pretty good idea, because I used to do a lot of radio at the Pro Football Hall of Fame. But if you don't have an idea, well, visitcanton.com will give you the ideas that you need for lodging, for restaurants, for attractions like Hartville Hardware. You say, why would I go to Hartville Hardware? Because it's the largest hardware store privately owned in the United States. Or Lehman's Hardware, which is on the way up. And there's a lot of other cool things to see in Stark County. And great golf courses if you get a good weather weekend. Play the Quarry if you can. So all those and other options are at visitcanton.com. A great site. They got pumpkin shows and a really cool, what is the thing I saw this weekend about a beer garden tour or a beer tour or something like that? Might be a few patrons of Fishmo's that might be interested in that, Sonny.
I just know they have a great Denny's right there by the Hall of Fame, and you can't beat the Grand Slam breakfast.
No, you cannot. Well, that'll do it for us. Mr. Folks is off to watch hockey. We will have you covered on Marion and Coldwater, on
Yes,
St.
sir.
Henry and Versailles, on
Yes, sir.
Northridge and Milton Union,
Yes,
on
sir.
Olentangy, Berlin, and Marysville, and New Albany and Pick North. Those are the games in the PressProsMagazine.com spotlight. Mark Znidar gets the weekend off because Ohio State is off. And Hal McCoy and Julie McMacken-Wright will be on UD. Oh, Sonny froze up on me. Are you frozen or are you
No, I'm just sitting there
pondering?
listening.
Are you pondering? Who does UD have this week?
Why did you ask?
Oh, I had to ask him. I put him
You
on.
had
the
to ask it, and I'm not sure.
This is proof we don't rehearse these, folks.
No, this is live television. This is live.
Keith, by the way, also says if you're having trouble deciding what to do with your share, he can help you. That's
Thank
awfully
you so
nice.
much. Yeah.
Thank you, Keith. We appreciate that. All right. That'll do it for us. Everybody have a great night. Encourage your friends to watch a replay. Thanks to Jerry Snodgrass. Hit that visit Canton.com site. Have a great week, and we'll see you on the site at PressProsMagazine.com.
Good night, everyone.